Take it easy. Try to drink this water slowly.
Here, I thought you might need this.
Thank you.
Imagine having only $8 left in your pocket and still choosing to help a complete stranger. That's exactly what Ariyah, a brave 12-year-old girl, did. But she had no idea that the man she helped was a Hell's Angel biker, and that one small act of kindness would change her life forever. The next day, nearly 100 bikers showed up at her street with a gift that no one could ever imagine. You won't believe what happened next and how one simple act turned a little girl's world upside down. Stay tuned, because this story proves that kindness can come back to you in the most powerful way. Don't blank. You don't want to miss a single second. Welcome to Brainfuel, the channel where we bring you unbelievable, heartwarming, and life-changing true stories from around the world. If you love stories that inspire, shock, and make you feel deeply, you're in the right place. Hit subscribe and join us, because every story here will fuel your mind, your heart, and your soul. Please, just take it. The words burst out of Ariyah's mouth before her mind could catch up. She didn't plan to say them. She didn't even plan to stop. But sometimes life places you in a moment where your heart speaks faster than your fears. The sun was setting over the cracked pavements of Easton Avenue, throwing long shadows across the sidewalks. Most kids her age would be running home, laughing, playing, dragging their heavy backpacks behind them. But 12-year-old Ariyah Johnson walked slowly, hugging her backpack close, because walking fast made her stomach growl louder. She hadn't eaten since morning. Her mom's paycheck was late, and their fridge held little more than a bottle of ketchup and half a loaf of bread. Ariyah had exactly $8 in her pocket, money she'd saved in a tiny envelope labeled lunch. With that, she had promised herself she would finally buy a real sandwich from the deli down the street. She could already taste the warm bread and cheese. But that changed the moment she saw him. A huge man slumped on the curb beside a beaten-up motorcycle that lay tilted against a parking meter. The machine looked like it had been through war, smoking, metal scratched, saddle torn. His leather jacket was scuffed, one sleeve ripped, knuckles scraped raw, and his face, pale, sweat dripping down his forehead. But it was the jacket patch that froze her in place. A skull with flaming wings, bold red lettering, Hell's Angels. Her teachers warned about men like him. Her neighbors always whispered, frightened, whenever a biker gang rode past. They said those jackets meant danger, chaos, trouble. Ariyah should have crossed the street. She knew that, but she didn't. Maybe it was because she recognized something in his expression, something she saw in the mirror sometimes. Exhaustion, hunger, a quiet desperation. His head hung low, breathing shallow, hands trembling as he tried to lift his water bottle, completely empty. Then he whispered, barely audible, "Kid, I just need water. Please." His voice cracked, and for a moment he didn't seem like a biker or a threat or anything the street warned her about. He seemed like a person who needed help. Ariyah took a step closer, her heartbeat thumping in her ears. "Are you okay?" she asked. He lifted his eyes. They were tired, red-shot, but gentle. "Ran the bike too hard. Got heat exhaustion. Just need a drink." She looked at his shaking hands, the sweat dripping down his temples, the way he was trying to stay conscious. Her stomach growled again, loudly, reminding her of that sandwich she had been dreaming of. But then she remembered something her mom always said. If you have the ability to help someone, even a little, you do it. Because one day, you might be the one who needs help. Ariyah didn't hesitate anymore. She sprinted into the corner store so fast the bells above the door jingled in panic. She grabbed a cold bottle of water, the biggest one she could find, and then she paused. Should she get something else? A snack? Something with sugar? Or maybe save the money for herself? She shook her head. He looked like he hadn't eaten all day either. So she grabbed a protein bar and hurried to the counter. "That's $7.89, the cashier said. Ariyah reached into her pocket and pulled out all her money, bills crumpled, coins warm from her palm. She paid without a second thought, receiving only a few pennies back. "Goodbye, sandwich." She ran outside, breathless. The man was still there, slumped forward, eyes half closed. "Here," she said urgently. "Please, just take it." The biker blinked at her, shocked as she gently placed the water bottle in his hands. His fingers curled around it immediately, like he was afraid it might disappear. He twisted off the cap with shaking hands and drank, long, heavy gulps, water dribbling from the corners of his mouth. "Easy, easy," she said softly, sounding exactly like her mom. He exhaled deeply as he finished. Color slowly returned to his face. You used your own money for this?" he asked, staring at her as if she were from another planet. Ariyah shrugged. "You needed it." A rough chuckle escaped him. "Kid, people cross the street when they see my jacket. They lock their doors, pull their kids away. But you gave me the last of what you had." She looked down at her shoes. "Mom says help is help. Doesn't matter who needs it." The biker swallowed hard, eyes glistening in a way she didn't expect. "What's your name?" "Ariyah." "I'm Troy," he said, placing a hand over his chest. "And you just saved my butt, literally." She giggled. The moment felt strangely comfortable. A little girl sitting on the curb with a rough-looking biker, two people who, according to the world, should have been strangers, maybe even enemies. Yet here they were, talking like old friends. A woman walking past scowled. "Ariyah, get away from that man." Another whispered loudly to her friend. "That child doesn't know what those bikers do." But Ariyah didn't move. She didn't care about rumors or patches or jackets. She only cared that this man had almost fainted, and now he didn't look like he was dying anymore. After a few minutes, Troy stood up slowly. "I should head home now, but before I go," he knelt down to her height, serious. "I won't forget this. You helped me when you didn't have to. When you had nothing, you still shared something." Ariyah smiled. "Just get home safe." He nodded, climbed onto his motorcycle, revved the engine, and gave her a final grateful look before riding off. She walked home with an empty stomach but a warm heart. What she didn't know was that Troy meant every single word, and he wasn't coming back alone. The next morning began like any other. Quiet, ordinary, nothing special. At least that's what Ariyah thought. She stood outside her building holding her backpack straps, shifting from one foot to the other as she waited for the school bus. The building behind her was old. Bricks faded from decades of sunlight. Laundry flapped in the breeze from the windows above. Neighbors shouted good mornings across balconies. Kids argued over whose turn it was to hold the soccer ball. A regular morning on Easton Avenue. Ariyah yawned, still sleepy. Her mom had left early for her nursing home shift, blowing her a kiss before rushing out the door. Ariyah was thinking about what school might bring today. Math quiz, reading assignment. Maybe her friend Mia would save her a seat on the bus. Then the ground trembled. At first, she barely noticed it. It felt like a truck passing by, or maybe construction happening around the corner. But then the rumble grew deeper, louder, stronger. The loose pebbles on the sidewalk began to dance. A soda can rolled away from the bus stop. Ariyah frowned. "What is that?" she whispered. The sound thickened, vibrating through the air like thunder caught in a metal cage. Her neighbors began to step outside, confused. Mr. Lopez from the corner apartment leaned over his railing. Two kids stopped arguing mid-sentence. A woman walking her dog paused, tightening the leash. Everyone looked up, eyes narrowing. Because the noise wasn't fading, it was coming closer. Much closer. A chain of loud, heavy thumps echoed through the street, almost like drums, but deeper, more powerful, like the roar of 100 beasts waking up at once. Ariyah's heart jumped into her throat. And then she saw them. Down the street, appearing slowly like a scene from a movie, came a long, shimmering line of motorcycles. 1, then 5, then 15, then dozens. Their chrome glinted underneath the sun, their engines snarled in unison, their tires rolled steady and controlled. The closer they came, the more the sound shook the air. The crowd on the sidewalk froze. A man at the bus stop whispered, "Are those Hell's Angels?" Another woman gasped, clutching her purse. A group of older teens who normally acted fearless suddenly backed towards the building. But Ariyah just stood there, frozen completely still, because a tiny part of her already knew. This wasn't an accident. They weren't just passing by. They were coming toward her street, toward her building. The line of motorcycles grew longer and longer, stretching so far she couldn't see the end of it. Nearly 100 riders, all in identical leather vests, all riding together in perfect formation. Their engines growled as if the entire road was alive. The bus driver, who had just pulled up at the corner, stared with wide eyes before driving away in reverse, deciding school could wait for whatever this was. People pulled out their phones, recording, whispering, cursing, praying. Then the thunderstorm of engines stopped. One by one, the motorcycles slowed, lined up directly in front of Ariyah's apartment building, and came to a synchronized, commanding halt. The street fell silent. It was so quiet that Ariyah's own heartbeat thumping against her ribs. Her neighbors stared in horror, shock, curiosity, a mix of emotions swirling like smoke in the air. Then she heard her mom's voice. "Ariyah, baby, stay back." Her mother came rushing out of the building in her scrubs, breathless, panic written all over her face. She grabbed Ariyah's arm and pulled her behind her instinctively. "What did you do?" she whispered frantically. "Why are they here?" I don't know," Ariyah whispered back, though part of her suspected something. Then the bikers began removing their helmets in unison. Some were young, some were old, some had thick beards, others had shaved heads. Tattoos ran down arms, across necks, even over knuckles. Leather vests creaked, boots thudded on pavement. All eyes from the crowd were locked on them. Who were they here for? What did they want? Ariyah felt her mom's hand tighten. Then a tall man stepped forward, and Ariyah recognized him instantly. Cleaned up, standing straighter, beard trimmed, eyes softer. Troy! He smiled, not a big smile, but the kind that said, "I didn't forget." "There she is," he said loud enough for the entire block to hear. "The girl who spent her last $8 just to help me." The crowd gasped. Her mom whispered, You helped him?" Ariyah nodded, a tiny nod. Troy continued walking toward them. "Yesterday that kid could have ignored me like everyone else. She could have crossed the street. She could have pretended she didn't see. But she didn't. She gave me water when I was about to collapse. She stayed with me when I needed a second chance, and she did it without fear. Ariyah felt her cheeks burn. The entire neighborhood was staring at her. Two of the bikers behind Troy whistled. "Bravest kid we ever met!" Her mom stepped forward hesitantly. "Sir, we don't want any problems, please." "No problems at all, ma'am," Troy interrupted politely, raising both hands. "We're here to show respect." Then he lifted his fingers and made a small gesture. Instantly, the huge group of bikers split into two lines, forming a long, open pathway down the street. At the end of that pathway was something covered in a bright red cloth. The neighbors leaned in, squinting. "What is that? Is it furniture? Is it a motorcycle? Oh Lord, don't tell me it's a motorcycle!" But it wasn't. Two enormous bikers stepped forward, took the corners of the cloth, and pulled it away with a dramatic flick. A gasp rippled through the entire block. Underneath was a brand new electric bicycle. Sleek black and hot pink, shiny metal rims, thick tires, a front basket, flashing LED headlights, and a giant golden bow wrapped around the handlebars. Ariyah's mouth fell open. Her hands flew to her face. That's for me?" she whispered. Troy nodded like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "You walk almost an hour to school every day. We're changing that. From now on, you ride in comfort." Her mother covered her mouth. Tears streamed down her cheeks uncontrollably. But Troy wasn't done. Another biker stepped forward, holding a thick white envelope. "This here's a little something from all of us." Ariyah took it with trembling hands and opened it. Her breath caught. Inside was a stack of bills. $3,500 in cash. The crowd erupted. Her mom let out a sob and dropped to her knees. Neighbors gasped. Someone shouted, "No way!" Another yelled, "Are they adopting her?" But Troy simply smiled. "You helped me when you had nothing. So we made sure you'll never worry like that again." And just like that, the world, her street, her neighbors, her quiet life, changed forever. In the days that followed, the entire neighborhood buzzed like someone had dropped a firecracker in the middle of Easton Avenue. Everywhere Ariyah went, people whispered, pointed, or stared in open disbelief. The bikers came for her? That little girl? She must have saved somebody important. Nah, can't be real. Can it? But it was real. Every part of it. Ariyah's shiny new electric bike became the most famous thing on the block. Kids who never spoke to her suddenly knew her name. Parents who once scolded their children for playing outside too late now stopped to ask her mom if they needed anything. Even the bus driver, the same one who reversed out of the street when the bikers arrived, honked whenever he saw her, smiling sheepishly. But the biggest change was inside Ariyah herself. She felt taller. Not physically, but in her heart, like something inside her had stretched, grew, and refused to shrink back down. She felt noticed, respected, like her little act of kindness, something she thought would disappear into the world, had echoed louder than she could imagine. Every morning, she rode her new electric bike to school. The electric motor hummed softly beneath her feet, the wind rushing past her cheeks. She no longer dragged her tired legs across town. She soared. The first day she arrived at school with it, the reactions were immediate. Kids crowded around her in the parking lot. "Yo, where'd you get that?" No way those bikers gave it to you. Are you like their princess or something? Can they give me a bike too? A few older students made jokes, but even they couldn't hide their amazement. Ariyah just smiled shyly. I just helped someone. That's all. But deep inside, she knew it was more than that. Her small kindness had lit a fire in people who spent most of their lives being misunderstood. And it didn't end with the gift. 2 weeks later, people across the city shared a story on social media titled, "Little Girl Helps Biker. Entire motorcycle club pays her back in the most unexpected way." It went viral. Local news stations reached out. Neighborhood Facebook pages blew up. Everyone wanted to meet the girl who spent her last $8 to help a stranger in leather. But the biggest impact came one quiet morning at school. Ariyah was called into the principal's office, the same office she usually avoided because it made her anxious. When she walked in, Principal Harris smiled warmly. "Ariyah, take a seat." She sat down nervously, clutching her backpack. "Don't worry," he chuckled. "You're not in trouble. In fact, this might be the best conversation you've ever had." He reached into his drawer and pulled out a blue folder with a gold seal on the front. "We shared your story with the district office, and they were so impressed by your kindness, maturity, and courage that they made a decision." He slid the folder across the desk. "You've been awarded the Academic Leadership Excellence Scholarship." Arya's hands flew to her mouth. A scholarship? For me?" "Yes," he said. "It will help cover school activities, educational programs, and future opportunities. You earned this." She blinked rapidly, tears forming. But, but I only gave someone water," she whispered. Principal Harris shook his head gently. "You gave someone hope. And that's leadership." When she ran home that afternoon, the paper still clutched tightly in her hand, her mother dropped the laundry basket in shock. They sat together on the couch, tears streaming from both their eyes. "You see, baby," her mother whispered, cupping her face. "Good always finds its way back." But even then, the story wasn't over. Months passed. Seasons changed. The electric bike stayed shiny because Ariyah cleaned it every Sunday, carefully wiping the dust as if it were a treasure. And every time she did, she remembered Troy's promise. "Kid, one day I'm going to pay you back. You helped me when you had nothing." But they hadn't seen the bikers since that unforgettable morning. Until the day of her high school graduation. The school field was filled with chairs, families clapping as names were called. "Ariyah Johnson!" She walked across the stage to applause, her cap trembling slightly because her hands were shaking with excitement. Her mom screamed louder than anyone. But then, a sound rolled through the distance, a deep, rumbling thunder. Ariyah froze mid-step. "No way! Not now! Not here!" The crowd turned. Teachers exchanged confused looks. Parents shielded their eyes from the sun. And then, just like that day years ago, a long line of motorcycles appeared, turning the corner in perfect formation. Not as wild chaos, but as a slow, respectful, powerful procession. Engines low, lights gleaming, leather jackets shining. Her classmates gasped. "Wait, are those? No frickin' way! Is this for her?" Arya's heart pounded. When the bikers parked in a clean row outside the field, one rider removed his helmet. Gray streaks in his beard now, wrinkles deeper around his eyes, but the same steady look, the same presence. Troy. He stepped forward, clapping slowly, a proud smile stretching across his face. "I told you I'd be there for you, kid." Ariyah ran toward him, cap flying off, gown swaying behind her, and threw her arms around him. He hugged her back, strong but gentle. "You kept your promise," she said, voice cracking. He pulled back, shaking his head. "No, you kept yours first." The other bikers nodded in respect, some even cheering. A reporter in the crowd whispered to her partner, "This is the greatest graduation moment I've ever seen." Back at the podium, Principal Harris wiped a tear from his eye. Troy reached into his pocket and handed Ariyah a small box, a graduation gift, he said. Inside was a silver pendant shaped like a tiny motorcycle wheel engraved with simple words, "Kindness rides forever." Ariyah clutched it to her chest. He nodded. "You changed my life, kid, and you reminded my brothers what loyalty really means." Ariyah looked at the crowd, her mother crying in the front row, her classmates filming, the bikers standing proudly like an army behind her. She never felt bigger, never felt braver, never felt more loved. Her mother whispered that night, "Some people change the world with power, some change it with money, but you changed it with $8. Ariyah smiled softly, touching the pendant around her neck. Because she knew now, kindness doesn't just ripple. It returns, stronger, louder, brighter than you ever expect.